All right, we're back on a Wednesday night. Feels like we were just here. It wasn't that long ago. Friday night when we did the live stream after the news of Jeff Capel's retention. And then what is it, Friday to Wednesday? 5 days or something like that. 5 days later, we're back for our regularly scheduled Wednesday night live Panther-Lair show here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Jim will join us in a moment. I guess if I send in the link, he's more likely to do so. So I should do that. Send Jim the link and let him know, that we are doing a live stream. I think he assumed we were doing a live stream, but he doesn't have the link to join us. But we are back and ready for another live Panther-Lair show here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. There won't be as much. There won't be any drinking tonight. I mean, maybe Jim, but I'm not drinking tonight. I'll even move my water off screen. I do, just to give you a sense of how tidy we keep the the Panther-Lair offices. I do still have the empty bottle here from the live show on Friday night. Our Jeff Capel retention live show. We still have that bottle here, but like I say, won't be drinking tonight. That was fun enough the other night, and I appreciate everybody who tuned in on a Friday night to vent about that decision. Obviously, we have a lot to talk about on that front tonight. We'll continue that conversation. Jim and I haven't really discussed it here on the live show, so we'll talk about the decision to keep Jeff Capel. I think the last time we had a live show, we expected them to fire Jeff Capel, and then that turned around pretty quickly in the matter of just a couple days. So we'll talk about that. A few other things. There's some over-under win totals for the football team that came out today on FanDuel, or maybe came out yesterday. I'm not really sure, but I thought those were interesting and always worth talking about. Plus anything you guys want to discuss as well right here on the live Panther-Lair show. You can get in the chat screen right over there, put your comments and questions, and we will answer as many as we can throughout the next hour, because that's what we do here on the live Panther-Lair show. Let's bring Jim in here if I can find the button. There he is. Hi, Jim. What's going on?
What's going on, Chris?
We did this show last Wednesday, didn't we? Did we do a live show last Wednesday?
Yes, I think. When did they get knocked out of the tournament? Wednesday.
Yeah, it was Wednesday. So we did a show that night,
right?
And 2 days later, I did another live stream on Friday night. I apologize for not inviting you, Jim. I felt like that was just I had to power through that one on my own and just kind of I had to vent and rant, and people had to vent and rant, and I felt like I turned the floor over to the fans quite a bit. So, and plus we drank. I don't know if you saw I had my Makers. We finished the Makers bottle. Somebody actually screenshotted it. There was like just enough in there that I was like, there's no point in pouring this into a shot glass. So we just, go big or go home. I'm at home and I still went big and just pounded the bottle. I'll try and find, somebody actually got a screenshot of it. Let me see if you wanted to enjoy the beauty of it here. Let me bring it up. I found it. This is something I'll probably hold on to and cherish. Let's see. So there you go. That's me hitting the bottle. You see that? Does that pop up on your screen, Jim?
Oh yeah, that like could be a meme like during football season.
Yeah, I did one last year or the year before, maybe at like the final game of the regular season. It must have been 2 years ago, and I was actually like, it was up in the air, pouring into my throat. That one's just sort of like horizontal, so I'm about to start. I don't even know if the whiskey's not even in my mouth yet. So in that screenshot, but anyway. So that's what we did on Friday night. That was exciting. And I think I was probably not alone in drinking that night. How surprised were you? I mean, let's just start right there. Sort of seemed to like maybe it started trending this way in, the minutes and hours before the official announcement at 2:30. When did you first start feeling like, wait a second, this might be going the other way from what we expected to? And what was your reaction when the announcement was actually made?
Yeah, I mean, I think I woke up Friday morning fully expecting what we thought was going to happen was going to happen. I mean, I think we had a lot of words prepared, a lot of stories to cover, and a lot of I think we crossed all of our bases there. But probably around mid morning, whenever we kind of got that I don't know, leak of a statement that Alan Green has the full autonomy to do whatever he wants. It's just up to him. So. I thought it was a little questionable once that got released that maybe he is, second guessing his decision or, has a different viewpoint than everyone else. But I think probably about then, and I'm trying to think like back to the timeline and back to the text messages. Like maybe that happened around noon, and maybe the announcement itself happened around 2:30. So pretty much at the 11th hours, whenever I started thinking like, oh, like this really could go in the other way.
Yeah. Yeah, that little quote from Pitt definitely made it feel like, wait a second. This is the kind of thing you say when you want to make sure everybody knows that the financial support for the buyout was there, even if it's chosen, even if Alan Green chooses not to use it. And yeah, I mean, to your point, I wrote a whole 3-2-1 column that morning, probably like 4,000 words, all pretty much centered around Pitt firing Jeff Capel. And I wrote it like on Thursday, as if he had been fired. And when he didn't get fired by the end of the day on Thursday, I had to change some words to like expected to, and then publish that on Friday morning. And I thought it was good. I thought, covered a lot of ground, really kind of put a bow on the Jeff Capel era. And then a few hours later, it's like, oh, by the way, that's not happening. We've got, I don't want to say the official story. Nobody's on the record. Nobody put out a press release, but the general kind of narrative coming out is Alan Green was prepared to do it. Alan Green was going to do it. Many people had gotten the impression from Alan Green that he was going to do it. But after exploring the coaching market, in some combination of either coaches who he liked but couldn't get and coaches who he wasn't necessarily convinced about, he decided to run it back for another year. That's kind of the official story that's sort of come out. And I sort of, I'm going to ask you for your take on it in a second. I think, as it's sort of put out there, between the buyout being, let's say, $15 million, and a buyout for a new coach, another $4 or $5 million, and paying a new coach's salary and assistants in the roster, like you're talking about like a $30 million investment, right? And so if you think of it that way, like I could see Alan Green or any reasonable person sitting back and saying, okay, as they look at at the possible coaches and coaching candidates, sitting back and saying, all right, is this guy, am I convinced enough about this guy to make that $30 million investment? And like we can agree or disagree with his assessment, but I think that's a reasonable approach to take. And by, most indications, he ultimately determined that the guys that he felt like he could get, and I think there were some guys he really liked, but maybe couldn't get, but the guys he felt like he could get didn't quite pass the bar of like, that's worth a $30 million investment, where it started feeling like making a change for the sake of making a change, as opposed to getting that home run hire. Now, all this talk about home run hires and sure things is going to come back to bite them if they have to go through this again next year and they hire somebody who's got like a sketchy record or questionable, resume. Say, well, is this the home run hire? But for now, that's what they're going with. Does that pass the smell test to you, Jim, or do you think there's something else at play here?
No, I mean, I could see where Alan Green says, yeah, we have the ability to do this. We have the money, the financials, we could get all this done. But like, that's a lot of cash to strap into this whole investment, and that, maybe that hamstrings us in other ways. So yeah, like you said, if it is a $28-30 million ordeal, that's a lot of money for Pitt, and that's a lot of money for any school. And, if they're not completely sold, on the outcome of it, then, maybe the means aren't justified just yet. So I think that's part of it. I mean, I think we both agree that he was looking at candidates. He may have sent feelers out to candidates. I mean, we saw all the national articles of, well, if Pitt opens, he might be linked to the Pitt job. So like, I think that space was definitely explored. And I think, he probably missed on some of his top candidates and, or didn't get an agreement or didn't have the right situation for those guys. And we're kind of seeing that a little bit happen in real time with Syracuse, a similar situation, a similar program, also trying to, navigate, being once a great power, now struggling, trying to get it back. And they're getting publicly turned down by some of their top candidates. I mean, like we're seeing it in real time. Like Hodgson said no, Shirt said no. It might, fall on Jerry McNamara. And I don't know if that's going to be real inspiring to the Syracuse fan base. So I don't know if he just kind of looked at that and said, okay, I did my work behind the scenes. Maybe we can run it back. Maybe all this money that we're going to invest to, pay the buyout, pay the other coaches buyout, build a competitive roster. Maybe we could all just sink that into a competitive roster and see what we can do for one season. And if it doesn't work, then you're back where you kind of were, March 6th of this year. I mean, you have 1 year
Right.
to kind of get this right. And I think that's the plan. I mean, I think they have to be good this year. And you kind of wish Green may have taken on that initiative going into this season, like, because he was around for the collapse 2 years ago. And so this was his first school year as athletic director. And I mean, obviously the basketball team was just bad. I mean, they were bad from the start. They lost to, two mid majors in November. They had a, key player miss the whole season, and it was just that. So I think, yeah, he has taken a more of awareness or, liking to the college basketball game and is interested in how it all works. But for Pitt's sake, you kind of almost wish he would have done that last March.
I want to come back to that in a second, but like sidebar, Jerry McNamara makes so much sense to me for Syracuse. I know it's not perfect, and I know they just got done trying to have a former player, longtime Boeheim assistant as the head coach, but like Jerry McNamara has actually been a head coach. He's got Siena in the NCAA tournament. He obviously was a great player there. He was on Boeheim's bench for like 15 years. Like, I don't know if the fan base would be inspired by it, but like, why not? I mean, like the Pitt fan base, probably a significant majority of the fan base would be excited about having Brandon Knight. And Brandon Knight doesn't have the head coaching experience that Jerry McNamara does, let alone the success that he's shown at a difficult, a mid-major school. Like, I think that's a obvious hire. Like, I'm surprised they haven't done it. I guess he can't do it because he's still coaching, but like, I'm surprised that wouldn't be like the number one. Like, why get turned down by guys when you have someone is going to take the job, who I think looks like a good candidate,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of those ones that, like, you dream big, then you kind of settle on Jerry McNamara and everyone's kind of going back and forth with it, but like they would eventually get on board with it. And I think that happened a little bit at Kentucky 2 years ago. Like they aimed really high. I think they tried to get the Baylor coach and, then it eventually became Mark Pope and everyone's like, Mark Pope, what the heck? And then I think at his like press conference, his like rally, his introduction, there was 20,000 Kentucky fans there. So It was like they eventually came around on it. And I think that's how Syracuse would probably treat McNamara as well.
I don't know why. Like, it seems like an obvious. Anyway, sidebar over. I think with Alan Green too, the other thing that I've definitely picked up on is I've talked to different people, and this goes back. This isn't just like a recent revelation. It sort of goes back a little while. I do feel like he's been really close to the program. This season, I don't know if that was the case last season or if kind of like you said, he watched a 12-2 season turned into 17-15 and said, well, I need to take a closer look at this. But I think he's been pretty close to the basketball program, maybe closer than I expect a lot of athletic directors to be. I mean, sitting in film and, going over evaluations, not necessarily like to offer input or something like that, but just seeing what's working. And I think like, while I think one of the primary reasons that a change wasn't made is that he didn't feel like he had a clear and obvious, home run option. I also think it's possible that at least some of the decision was influenced by thinking, I actually think Jeff Capel can get the job done here. That, with the right resources and the right roster, I think Capel can actually win. This is what I think Alan Green might be thinking. Now, I don't know if that was his number one motivation. Like you and I both said, we think he was pretty far down the road of being ready to fire the guy. But I think, putting it all together, of the not feeling all that great about all the candidates that were available and attainable, plus, having seen what he saw this season being close to the program, said, you know what? I think it makes more sense to run it back and not take a chance on this other guy, see what we can do here. Recruiting class coming in and kind of a structure and foundation in place as far as how the program operates. Like, let's try it again. And I think that might be informed by what he saw when he was up close with the program. Now, I mean, nobody wants to hear that, oh, Jeff Capel can do a better job and Alan Green has confidence in Jeff Capel. I have to think the confidence is a little bit tenuous, and I think fans would agree about that. But I do think, like, I don't think his statement was a huge vote of confidence. But I think he might have at least some confidence. You know what I mean? Not just, oh, I couldn't get the guy I wanted.
No, and I think it kind of goes in hand with what you're saying, that he has taken more direct hands-on approach here. It's that he saw the failures, saw what other teams are doing, saw what other schools are committing to their NIL and all those kind of things, and said, all right, let's at least give this a shot with this guy, the guy that's, under contract to 2030, the guy that has the $12 million buyout. Let's try to just see if this can work. And like you said, I don't think that's going to be popular. I know it isn't. I've seen the outcry since Friday. I mean, it was, it was not I'm trying to think of like comparable weekends of like meltdowns, but like whenever like Pitt initially hired Kevin Stallings, or after a really bad football loss, but like it was up there. I mean, like people were pretty despondent. So I think with that, there's going to be skepticism going into the season, and I think it's going to take a lot of wins and a lot of goodwill to kind of change the narrative and get people back on board. I mean, I don't think there's going to be a lot of people at their home games, and there weren't last year, and there weren't the past few years, and what it takes is winning. And that 23 team, they eventually got it going, and people kind of bought in. Like that Miami game when they made the comeback, it was electric. The Syracuse senior day was sold out. I mean, eventually it can happen, but I think going into this season, there's not going to be a lot of buzz, even if they do, land some guys in the portal that are pretty good. They are bringing in this good recruiting class. I think it always is going to come back to, well, you almost fired the coach and you chose not to. So how am I supposed to feel confident about it? So I think there's just going to be a lot of, doubters or, people questioning this until they see actual results.
Yeah. I agree. And it'll be, this is what I was thinking of while you were saying that. Which reaction do you think was worse on the boards? Like Friday or the Stallings hire?
I almost think the Stallings hire. I kind of remember that one. It was, I think it was like Easter weekend, and our guy Matt, posted like, yeah, it's happening. Like the Stallings thing is a dead deal or done deal. And it was pretty lively that night, if I recall.
Yeah, that press conference was one for the ages too. Let's see. Let's get into a few comments and questions here. Oak Original says, did you guys really believe there were donors ready to plop 14 million in gold bars, popular online scam, for the Capel buyout? Really? No such Pitt donors exist, right? Yeah, I do. And I don't think either one of us ever said that donors were going to come up with the money for the buyout. Even when there was like a weirdly worded tweet from like On3 that got sort of, I think, misconstrued as me saying that the donors had come up with the money. Like, I don't think you ever believed it. I don't think I ever believed it. I don't think Matt ever reported that it was happening. I don't think any of us ever believed that Pitt's donor base has enough whales or enough people who are passionate enough to come up with a $10 million buyout, let alone a $15 million buyout. I never believed that. Did you, Jim?
No, I mean, I think our understanding of the situation was that the school was going to do it, but also with the idea that donors would probably or were already on board with the next coach in terms of helping his NIL. But in terms of the buyout itself, I think it was going to ultimately come down to the school paying it.
Yeah, exactly. So to your question, did we really believe there were donors ready to plop 14 million in gold bars for Capel's buyout? No, we didn't. We don't now. We didn't then. And, I won't believe it again next year. I just don't think the fan base has that kind of strength. I think there are some schools that are passionate enough about their athletic programs that they will be able to rally the donors to come up with that kind of cash. That's not Pitt. And I don't know that that'll ever be Pitt. Like they're scraping and digging in the couch cushions to try to come up with revenue sharing money and NIL money. They're not, they don't. There's no like secret backroom meeting of big money donors who are ready to write checks for, 5 guys writing $3 million checks to buy out the head coach. That's not, they need a handful of those kinds of guys just to write checks for like $1 million or $500,000 to try and get good players. And so, no, to your question, did we believe it? No, we did not. Josh Newark flips over to the football side, says, was the heat that Blue Hicks took from Pat Narduzzi warranted in your opinion? Seems like this felt like a continuation of something more than just missing a flight. Jim, did you see this quote about Blue Hicks?
I did. And you know what? It was the second time in spring he has called out a player for some sort of egregious.
What was it? Cam Lindsay academics?
Cam Lindsay. He missed class.
So Blue Hicks was not at practice Tuesday. Pitt, of course, had spring break last week. So they started practice 2 weeks ago, had 3 practices. They were off for spring break because Pitt had spring break. And then they came back and had their first practice of really week 2 yesterday. Blue Hicks was not there. Our buddy Nathan Breisinger asked Pat Narduzzi, was Blue Hicks out there today? Narduzzi's quote, and earmuffs, kids, because he says a bad word here. Narduzzi says, quote, Blue Hicks was not out there. It's a great question. It's a great question. It's a good observation. Blue Hicks was not out there. I don't have a blue vase in here, but we had, you guys know the TSA issues that are out there in the country and flights being canceled with the weather. But guess what? It's a shitty excuse, okay? But that'll be his excuse. That's his excuse. So he's having troubles getting back. We had a couple other guys have troubles, and they found a way to get back. Some guys flew into Columbus and took a rental car over from Columbus to get it done. So when I talk about the blue vase, find a way to get it done, I don't want to hear excuses. Like, he let our team down. So he's not back from spring break yet. So it's not helping him in the classroom, and it's not helping us on the field today. So he'll pay the price. Strong words. Strong words. The blue vase, everybody knows like the jokes about the blue vase. The blue vase story is this video they found from like the 50s of this guy telling a story about how, when a man was hired for a job, he was told to go acquire this blue vase, and he goes through all these ordeals and trouble to try and acquire this blue vase. And he keeps saying, I said that I would do it, and it will be done. And so it's this whole idea that, you say you're going to do something, you commit to it, and you follow through, and you live up to your word, and you don't let people down. And so that's what the whole blue vase symbolizes, why they watch the blue vase video before the start of the season every year and all this stuff. It became a big joke and a laughing stock, but that's really what's behind it. So when he's talking about he wishes he had a blue vase next to him, the Blue Hicks needed to find a way to get back. I do think, to Josh's question, it was a continuation of something more than just missing a flight. I mean, I don't think this incident happened in a vacuum. I think it's entirely possible that the coaches spoke to the players at length about making sure they got back on time, that if you're going to go out of town, make sure you schedule to come back on Friday or Saturday. Don't leave it till Sunday, because if you run into a delay, then you're going to miss time. Now, Blue Hicks was not even back on Tuesday. So that's a considerable delay that, even if you scheduled your flight back on Sunday and got delayed and couldn't make it back by Monday, you should have come back at some point on Monday. So I do think it was a continuation, but at the same time, he seemed genuinely irritated by this, that everybody else was able to make it back from spring break, and this one guy did not. So that's my long answer to Josh's question. I don't know. It doesn't seem to me like the kind of thing to keep an eye on. You run some gassers or, clean the steps at the stadium or something like that. I don't know. I don't think it carries over into the season, but I guess it's something to keep in mind in terms of reliability, right? As you move forward, and, if you notice a guy's not getting as many snaps in games or misses a game or something like that, there's a history now, right? A context.
Yeah, I mean, if there's like a second incident that like bubbles up, like, okay, we know there was a baseline to it, but I mean, I could see the disappointment, just because, I mean, if you look at all the positions on the field, like, we're most concerned about wide receivers. He's the only returning starter. He is a senior. He's supposed to be a leader, and he didn't make it back. So I could understand why the coaches would probably be upset with that. Just purely from a football standpoint, like, you could think back to any sport you played in high school. Like, if you're one of the seniors and you miss practice, they were pretty mad at you. So yeah, it probably carries over to college football too.
What, is he a senior, or is he like a redshirt junior or something like that?
I
think he might be a redshirt junior. Didn't he redshirt his first year? I remember wrong about that. It doesn't matter. All these things are largely irrelevant. Marlon Barnes Truther says Chris shotgunning a beer for the party on the North Shore night will truly get the vibes going. So yeah, Pitt announced their promotional schedule today, I guess, this morning. Miami of Ohio is Pittsburgh Day. Did they announce what any of these things mean?
They did Pittsburgh Day last year, didn't they?
What did that involve? Do you remember?
I don't know. Like, maybe some like Mr. Rogers like songs and stuff like that.
That actually sounds somewhat familiar. All right. The Central Florida game will be the Hall of Fame game when they announce the new, the Hall of Fame class. And then on September 17th, the Thursday night against Syracuse, is the party on the North Shore. They didn't give any details about what that means, did they?
No, that's up for interpretation.
Well, Marlon Barnes Truther wants me to shotgun a beer out on the North Shore. I don't think I'm going to be doing that. We typically don't drink before the games, and that's going to be a late game on a Thursday night. So I might drink after that game, but I'm probably not going to do it, at the North Shore. The next game is the Bucknell game, is homecoming. Like, how do you feel about that game being homecoming, Jim? Bucknell?
Yeah, they could probably pick a different one, but I guess they have 7 home games and 2 of them are not on Saturdays.
They're still doing stuff. I mean,
yeah, they're still,
the party on the North Shore, senior night for the Florida State game. I guess, so your other options, I mean, you have, Pittsburgh Day, Hall of Fame, party on the North Shore, homecoming. For the North Carolina game, they have the 1976 National Championship Golden Anniversary, which is pretty cool. I think, honoring that. The Georgia Tech game, they have the Hail to Heroes. Could they have swapped that? Could they have made the Georgia Tech game homecoming?
Probably. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, maybe you use homecoming. If I don't even know if people still get into homecoming, the idea of coming back, but maybe you could use that to goose the attendance a little bit for the Bucknell game. You know what I mean? Like, that's probably going to be a low attended game. Maybe homecoming brings people back into town and gets a few more butts in the seats for that one. And then, senior night, the third to last game of the season will be senior night. Also against Florida State. I think the basketball team had senior night against Florida State too.
Similar vibes on a night.
Also on a primetime weeknight, just like this game. That was a Wednesday night at 9:00. This is a Friday night, probably at 7 or 7:30. So any of those, none of these things really affect us, other than homecoming. I think is halftime a little bit longer for the homecoming festivities.
I guess, I can't even tell you what homecoming was this past season. I don't remember which game it was. Maybe NC State. But I mean, the only thing about the schedule I like is I'll be grumpy and annoyed working the Syracuse and Florida State games, but I'll also be happy and relaxed whenever I have an extra Saturday off.
Yeah. And not to mention the Virginia Tech game too.
Yeah, that's right. I'll probably go to that
one. Three weeknight games. So you get 3 Saturdays off, Jim. Look at you. Adam Vinchik wants to know, do you think basketball will get big time transfers? I mean, I think that's the goal, right? That's the plan, is to get really good transfers. I was looking back at Jay Kuntz, the general manager, figures into this pretty considerably, and I was looking back at his last couple of years when he was at West Virginia, 2023 and 2024. Those 2 years when he worked as a general manager at West Virginia for a little while, but those 2 classes. The first one, I'm going to say maybe the 2023 transfer class was ranked number 2 in the nation. 24 transfer class was ranked number 6 in the nation. I think each of those 2 years, 4 out of their 5 starters for the bulk of the season were newly acquired transfers. So he's had some success. And, we actually, I forgot, we had gone through this before a little bit, talking about Jeff Capel. Those first few years in the transfer portal, he did pretty well. I think first 3 years, I mean, you're talking about Dan Oladapo, didn't really do anything. Jamarius Burton, Mo Gee, Nelly Cummings, Blake Hinson, Greg Elliott, Ish Leggett, and Zach Austin. That's 8 guys, 7 out of 8 guys over the course of 3 transfer classes that I would say all were really good. Varying degrees. Some were better than others, but I would say all, 7 of those 8 guys were really good. Now, the last 2 transfer classes haven't been so hot. But I think Capel did well in 3 out of 5 transfer classes in the portal era, and Jay Kuntz has had success. So, I mean, that's the goal, right? And that's what this next season is going to be. The success is going to come from whether or not they can get really good transfers. Do you have a level of confidence about this, Jim?
I'm interested to see how it plays out, because I think with this class, they need direct starting help at multiple positions. They need a center, they need a point guard, they need somebody that can shoot a 3-pointer. So, I mean, I think to some varying degrees, I think they can count on Roman to still be what he's been doing and grow. And I think Anthony Falesi is going to come in and give them minutes. I think Noyes is a good player that adds value. But you're talking about 3 prime positions that other schools are also going to be looking at. I think that's sometimes what happens in the transfer portal. And even some of those years, they were involved with some big names. But again, it's the transfer portal in football. Everyone's looking for a defensive end. Everyone's looking for a left tackle. And in basketball, everyone's looking for height. Everyone's looking for shooting. Everyone's looking for a lead guard. So it's going to be competitive, but I'm interested to see, if the budget increases, and it sounds like it's going to, that, sometimes in basketball recruiting, and especially just in the current age of college athletics, it's like, all right, what can you offer me? I don't care that you lost 20 games last year. I don't care that the fans are mad at you. Like,
Yeah.
could you meet my number?
Right.
Yes. Okay. I'll come play for you. So
Yeah.
they have that ability if they have the funds to just offer a spot. Like it doesn't come with the like attachment that we all know Pitt basketball is right now. They're just looking at it. It's like, okay, like, yeah, I'll come play in the ACC. Like, you have a pretty nice arena. Like,
Yeah.
sure. So I think it can be done. So we'll
Yes.
see if it will get done.
Over under 3.5 starters next season are transfers. New transfers, newly acquired transfers. Over under 3.5.
I could see that being over, because I think like at minimum you need 3, and I don't, I can't say I can pencil in anyone else that they currently have as a starter. Like, if they can get upgrades, like, they should try to upgrade it everywhere.
I think we would assume Roman Cialeppa will be a starter. So really what I was asking you is whether you think that they'll start one of the freshmen or they will get another transfer who can take a starting spot.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends. Like, I think there's a world where Falesi starts and is pretty good and can help them right away, but I don't know. I mean, maybe they could find a guy that's his exact height, skill set, and is 5 years older that has played college basketball for the past 5 years. That's helpful.
Yes. Special Officer Doofy, not sure I agree with your police work here, sir, but says Jeff Capel won't accept the fact that he can only win here by recruiting defense and rebounding. He wants to score. Sir, I would actually contend that it was the exact opposite problem this year, where his transfer class was built around a center who offered really just, defense and rebounding, no scoring. His main point guard addition was like a 31% career 3-point shooter and was below that in most of his seasons of college prior to that. His other transfer additions included one guy who made like 2 3-pointers last year and another guy who shot really well over the second half of the season. I would say he did not add enough scoring last year. I would say he did not put enough emphasis on offense last year. And I would say his transfer additions really over the last 2 seasons have largely revolved around trying to be better at rebounding and playing defense in the post. And they won 30 games total over those 2 seasons, I would contend, largely as a result of the emphasis on defense and rebounding, which also, by the way, we should not forget, they weren't very good at either one of those things outside of like Roman Cialeppa this year. So I would disagree with the assessment here. I don't know, Jim. What do you think about Special Officer Doofy?
I think they need more offense. I mean, I think it was abundantly clear. Like, there were stretches this season where they had a couple good games where they shot the ball well, but obviously over 32 games, it never lasted. And, even going back to last year, I mean, what was the plan for 3-point shooting? Like, yeah, like Ish and Jalen, they can make shots. Guillermo can step out and make one. And, Zach Austin's a pretty effective, low volume 3-point shooter, but there was never an emphasis to go out and get like an instant offense. Like, that's, I guess it was Damian Dunn, but even him, I don't think he was like a knockdown 3-point shooter. So like,
no,
that's 2 seasons in a row where they completely deviated from anything they ever had success. Like, they won games for 2 seasons because Blake Hinson would just shoot from wherever. And, the year before that, they had Nelly Cummings that could hit threes. They had Greg Elliott. They had, they just didn't have that the past 2 seasons. So I think the emphasis should be to score some more, because they just didn't do a lot of it this year.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of scoring points. Pitt did not score points this year. They were next to last in the ACC in points per game. They were third to last in field goal percentage. They were 15th out of 18 teams in 3-point field goal percentage. They were not a good offensive team. They didn't score very well. They didn't shoot very well. And a lot of their results reflected that. A lot of games they lost because they just didn't score enough. And so I would disagree with your assessment about that, sir. WMS Hornets says, how much do you think they will be willing to pay returning players? I think, Jim, so I mean, there's a couple angles to how they're going to build this roster. One is obviously the freshmen who are coming in. One is the transfer portal that we just talked about. And then one is the returning players. I think, Jim, they will do what they need to do to retain Roman Cialeppa. And then everybody else, it'll come down to a matter of, are you willing to take this offer? And I think the negotiations will be from Pitt's end. Here's what we're willing to pay you. We can't go over that. If that's not good enough for you, you're going to have to go somewhere else. I don't think there's going to be a lot of back and forth there. I think they'll draw a line in the sand, which is about everyone after Siolepa. They would like to have some of these guys back. They're good rotation players, can fill out the roster, but I don't think they'll break the bank to return most of these guys outside of Siolepa. I think they'll do what they need to do to keep Roman.
Yeah, I don't think the basketball team has anyone like Mason Heinschel where you could kind of go back and forth and, you slide them extra money. I think there's a cap to, what you would spend on this team and what the guys you would bring back. I mean, I think Noyes brings a certain value, but I don't think he's someone you would overspend on. I mean, I think he has a certain value that he has as a player. And I think I would go with, I don't even know who else. Like, I don't even know who else is like an absolute priority to keep other than those two right now. I mean, I think there's a world where Brandon Cummings is a good basketball player, but he's hurt. And we've kind of already heard whispers that he might be looking to move on after he got hurt. So I don't know exactly how many players. I think Omari Witherspoon's, worth keeping around, but I don't think he's going to go out and like command a lot of money on the transfer market. So, I mean, I think he's another guy you would keep, but beyond that, I mean, I think it might be okay to just kind of get a new cast of players into the program.
And with Cummings, the thing that really stands out to me is that he disappeared. Like that he wasn't there on senior night. I said this on the boards or on Twitter, or maybe both, that, on senior night after they introduced, DeMarco Minor and Cam Corrin and Barry Dunning Jr., the whole team got together at center court, all the players, for a photo. And there were 11 guys there. Deshaun Jackson obviously wasn't there. Omni Najai obviously wasn't there. And Brandon Cummings and Papa Amadou Conti weren't there. And that, to me, that was the final. Like, how do you come back after that? Like, how do you come back after skipping senior night? Unless you had a really good reason, a really compelling reason. And I can't imagine what that would be. And I don't think he was in Charlotte. I don't think those guys were in Charlotte on the bench for the ACC tournament. Feels to me like they're gone already. I don't know about you. Like, I don't like, if you're not there for that, if you're not there to get a picture taken with the team at the last home game, are you still on the team?
It's hard to say anymore because I think last year Damian Dunn was not in Charlotte, but then we heard all summer that he was trying to come back and they were trying to find him this extra year. And I was just surprised by that because I figured his lack of presence in Charlotte and at the end of the season meant, okay, I'm done. So I guess you can't write anything off, but yeah, I would look at those situations and just based on, kind of what you hear, it's like, I'd be surprised if Brandon Cummings comes back for a third season. And yeah, so like, that's like, whenever I go back and forth on guys, yeah, I think Brandon Cummings is talented. I think he could score the basketball, but like, I've already like almost in a way have kind of already expected him to move on.
Yep. Same here. Adam Vinchik points out that you have the FU shirt on, Jim. Shout out to you.
Furman.
All the time. DPJ wants to know what's the buyout next year. Probably like, do we have a number we're going to start going with? 11, 12, somewhere around there? 10?
Yeah, if we're believing 14, 15, then I guess, subtract 3.5 million from it.
Let's keep saying 8 figures.
Okay. I think we have another year of just saying 8 figures.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Special Officer Duvey says, call me selfish, but if we can't watch the spring game, you should cancel it altogether and just have a practice. So there's a lot, I guess he means less chance of injuries. I kind of thought that, like, if you can't have fans at the spring game, why even have it? I mean, you might as well just have another scrimmage. You know what I mean? Like, unless the players really enjoy the sort of competitive element of it, of being split into teams and all that kind of stuff, like, you might as well just have a practice. It counts as a practice. You might as well like get something done, instead of running your vanilla offense and vanilla defense. Like, why bother? If you can't have fans there, the only reason to do it is as a fan event. So why even bother, Jim?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you because I look back last year and, some teams just started to cancel it because they saw less value in it. Like there's, I think Ohio State and Texas just said, like, we're just not going to do it. But I looked last year, Florida State Stadium was being renovated, and they came to the conclusion, well, let's just cancel the game, and rather than send in the media and a camera crew, and let's just cancel the whole event, and we'll have a 15th practice. And that was probably what they should have done. I think it would have been met a little more understandably if they just said, we're not doing a spring game, we're just doing a 15th practice. The stadium in North Shore is all torn up, we can't get in.
Yeah.
But like by saying you're having a closed door or no fan spring game, it kind of makes them feel like they're missing out on something. So I think they're working on getting, some sort of broadcast stream. I'm sure 93.7, the Fan, will have some sort of broadcast. We'll be there to report on whatever happens on the field, but I don't know if that can be replicated. I mean, the Pitt spring game doesn't draw that well, but like the 3,000 or 4,000 people that go actually want to be there. And so just by teasing that it's happening and they can't go, I don't think is, the right approach.
Let me see. Mad Dog says, I'm super excited for Anthony Felici. Seems like the most ready to contribute, high-level athlete, good finisher, and good at defense. I'm excited for him. Yeah, he kind of replaced he took over, Chase Foster was the big one. When Chase Foster committed, it was a big, big deal. But then over the course of his senior season, Felici ended up being the main guy. I think they're both really good, right? This whole recruiting class, we know it's ranked number 12 nationally, 3 4-star prospects, but Felici seems to have climbed to the top. I think he's number 35 in the class of 2026, and Foster is number 37. At least those two guys, and potentially. And there's another question from DPJ asking if Jamal Jones is going to be on the team next year. We do think he is going to be on the team next year. At the very least, Felici and Foster will contribute next season. And I don't know if they're good comps for those guys. I don't know. Is there anybody that comes to mind for you, Jim? I remember when Foster committed, I asked somebody, I was like, well, who's a comparison? And they were like, Pitt hasn't really had a guy like this. And, I think what Felici has grown into, I don't know. Is there a guy he reminds you of?
I don't know. I mean, he's a big physical wing. I mean, I think I think the knock on him right now is he needs a more consistent 3-point shot, but just from a physicality of a 6'6" wing, I don't know. Is there some Jamel Artis in that game where, it took him a while to become a good 3-point shooter, but he was a good slasher those first 2 years. So I don't know if there's something like that. And obviously Jamel was not ranked that high. I think he was outside the top 100. We're talking about a top 40 guy. So I think Felici's he's going to resemble Roman in that you're just going to look at him and say, oh, he looks the part. And I think that really shows up even on his high school highlights. He's just big and physical, and he can jump and do all these things. And he's 6'6", kind of chiseled, almost looks like a football player. So I think from that point of view, you're just going to, when he walks on the floor, whenever that first open practice, that first scrimmage, whenever you see him, you're going to be like, okay, I get it. I get the top 40 ranking. So I think just the physicality standpoint is really going to be noticeable with him.
Mr. John says not having the blue gold game open to the public is a slap in the face to the Pitt fans. I'm going to take Pitt at their word that just logistically it couldn't be worked out. Like you said, Jim, I mean, the stadium is being renovated. The North Shore is all torn up for the draft. Are you going to go to the draft, Jim?
I don't think so.
You have to hesitate about it. You have to think it through. You're not sure. No, I can't see any. Far be it for me to tell people what to do with their time. I can't see any appeal in it.
I would have liked back in the old days whenever they did it, in New York City, that might have been fun. But just standing in the North Shore looking up at a giant screen doesn't sound as fun to me.
No, definitely not. And some people are going to be there on day 2 of the draft or day 3 of the draft. What are you going to do?
What if it's a bad weather weekend in Pittsburgh? What if it's like this?
It absolutely could be. There's a decent chance that it will be. I might check out the they have the Pitt thing downtown in the cultural. I forget what they're calling it. What's the thing in the cultural district called? Do you remember?
The Pitt branded thing?
Yeah, the Pitt installation or something.
Like a Hall of Fame or something.
Yeah, something. I might go check that out. But the draft and this whole 600,000 people are going to come to Pitt. 600,000 people aren't coming to Pittsburgh for the NFL draft. Do we have hotel rooms for 600,000 people in this city? That's like double the size of the city, Jim. So the city is going to triple in size for this weekend. It's questionable. Color me skeptical. Because I think there was and we might have talked about this before, I think there were questionable accounting practices on how they came up with the numbers of how many people attend the draft. Like if every time you walk into the draft area, you're counted. Well, that doesn't really count considering people are just going to come in for their team and then leave and then come back and, back and forth. And I don't know. It's all a mess. But anyway, back to our original point. I'm taking Pitt at their word that logistically it just couldn't be done feasibly. I don't think it's meant to be a slap in the face of the fans. Panarduzzi seemed to not really want to take the event somewhere else. They had done it at the Riverhound Stadium before. They've done it at high school stadiums before. He even made a mention of how they did it at the soccer stadium and said he didn't want to have it at a soccer stadium again. So I guess I get that. I don't know what the good alternative would be. Maybe they can do something in August. Maybe they can have a night practice at Acrisure Stadium and let the fans come out and watch. I'm choosing to take them at their word that they just didn't have a better option this time.
Yeah, and if if we go to the game and I walk through the gold lot and there's any ounce of construction and it looks like people could have parked, I will take a picture and tweet about it. But I'm gonna assume, because it even sounds like it's not just they're replacing the seats. It's not just the draft. They are actually doing some sort of renovations in the stadium. I think it even extends to the press box. I don't even know where we're going to sit. So
yeah, I think the radio booth is. I think the radio booth for sure is unavailable. So
yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think the best approach just would have been hey, it's 1 year off. We're taking the year off. Logistically, we just can't get in there. Blame it on the Steelers and just call it a day.
Rich Campsey wants to know, is the Pitt basketball job better than Syracuse, Boston College, and or Georgia Tech? I would say it all depends on who's putting up money for NIL and rev share. What kind of resources do you have available? And I don't know what Syracuse, Boston College, and Georgia Tech are playing with. I don't really know what Pitt's going to be playing with, but that would be the big distinguishing factor, other than some of the other kind of environmental factors. I'd rather be in Pittsburgh than Syracuse, but I might rather be in Atlanta than Pittsburgh. So, I don't know if that is a huge distinguishing factor. To me, which of those four jobs is the best? It's whichever one has the most money to work with.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think we've heard whispers through the years that, Boston College is probably the least spending team in the entire ACC. And I think most of the results show that. I think, for as bad as crowds were at Pitt basketball games this year, I don't think anyone was at the Conte Forum this year for Boston College games. Their coach was tweeting back and forth with fans at some point this season. So I think Boston College is in a pretty dark place. And I would guess they probably have the least amount of donors. So I don't know which one's the best, but I would guess Boston College is probably the worst.
It's fair. That's fair. Let's see. Special Officer Duvey says, I think everybody on this team is pretty much terrible outside of Roman. I don't think everybody on the team is terrible outside of Roman Cialepa. I think Noyes Indrusitis played well over the final 15 or 17 games. I think Amari Witherspoon had a good ACC tournament. This is one of those stats I keep repeating so I've committed it to memory. But in the two games in the ACC tournament, he scored 30 points on 11 of 22 shooting. I'll take that. 15 points per game on 50% field goal. Sure. Night after night. Yeah. Amari Witherspoon, I think, finished the season well. I don't think other guys are terrible. I think Kieran Mullen showed some potential to be good. But I think it's, Roman is the one who can help you. I think seems to have the highest ceiling. He could potentially help you the most next year. And that's why he's the priority in retention, ahead of all of those other guys. But I think we did talk about that. But I did want to get to this one. Dave Yark says, Kieran Mullen and Henry Cody Lau were supposed to redshirt this year. Why in the world would you go somewhere to sit all season? And why would Capel even recruit players who aren't ready to play? Well, to the second part, Jim, about why would you recruit guys just to redshirt them? Or with the purpose of redshirting them, you have 15 scholarship spots you can use. You might as well use them, bring them in, see if they can develop. You've got bodies for practice. You're not going to get 15 guys into your rotation. So you're going to have a handful of guys who don't play every year, whether it's walk-ons or guys you intend to redshirt. So I think that's why you do that. I would have to think that after spending this year, Henry Cody Lau redshirting, Kieran Mullen playing in only a handful of games, I would have to think those guys will probably come back and wouldn't cost much, because you do need like bodies, right? Like you need guys to, not just be in your rotation, but to practice against. You need to be able to practice 5-on-5, and guys like that, and plus walk-ons kind of fill a valuable role in that regard.
Yeah, you need to, fill a roster. And how many times at the end of the year did Jeff Capel said, well, we really couldn't do 5-on-5 in practice. So, I mean, I think from that perspective, that's why teams do it. And you have the ability to kind of, stash guys, maybe like you used to be able to. Like there was a time wherever, Pitt would take a guy and he'd sit around and eventually, like he's useful. Man, there's one that on the tip of my tongue and I can't think of it. But, but like for the player's perspective, like, Kieran Mullen, like he's probably not going anywhere in the ACC otherwise, unless it's for a redshirt deal. Same with Henry Cody Lau. I mean, if they want a taste of big time college basketball, I mean, like this was their opportunity. It's not like other schools were, beating down their doors to get them. So I think for that perspective, like, okay, like I'll come in, I'll redshirt and, see where I stand the next season. If not, I can transfer. But this might be my only chance to really play ACC basketball, and they're giving me a shot. I might as well take it.
Yeah. And I mean, I didn't think Kieran Mullen looked completely hopeless out there.
I didn't either.
He looked like he could be okay for a few minutes a night. And even occasionally did things that was like, that was a good thing that he just did. Okay, there might be something to build on there. So maybe, you're going to have to get, I think obviously you have the goal of a transfer center, but like if he's your backup or a guy who takes a few minutes at the 5, depending on what kind of lineup you want to run out there, I think you could do worse than that. So I think he could be a useful player. I don't know how Henry Cody Lau fits into the whole thing, but as a solid practice player, if nothing else, I think he's fine. Special Officer Doofy says he's going to the draft to party. I just feel like I could find other places to party, but maybe I wonder, are you even going to be able to like tailgate? Could you drive down there and like tailgate? I have to imagine that's not even an option. It'd be public transit. And what are you going to do there? Like take a shopping bag full of Bud Lights, and go stand around somewhere? I don't know. I'm sure they have it set up.
People have done worse, but
yeah, right. And I'm sure like they'll have it set up so you can spend like tons of money on beer, at the restaurants or at stands or kiosks or something. But yeah, have fun down there, man. That's all you. Robert Hutchinson says, any thoughts on if there'll be changes to Jeff Capel's staff? That alone should be what he has to sacrifice by keeping his job. No way it's justifiable keeping his staff. That's neither here nor there to me. I think there's probably a decent chance he ends up making some staff changes this offseason for the first time in 8 years. It doesn't move the needle for me. I feel like basketball, it's all about getting the players and getting good players. He could bring in more guys. He has added to the staff. He hasn't fired anybody really, but he's added to the staff. More analysts, more people to, scout or whatever all those guys do. It's a much bigger coaching staff than it was when Jeff Capel was first hired. So he could, do something like that. It just, I don't know. If he lets one of these guys go, one of those 3-man assistants who've been with him since the start, I'll say, okay. And if he keeps them all, I'll say, okay. It doesn't move the needle for me at all. Does it for you?
No, I think it would be more just to appease fans, just to see something different. But like from it would be more of a paper move than anything that like would functionally change about how Pitt approaches basketball. Assistant coaches for the longest time in college basketball were tied to certain cities or certain AAU programs. And it was all about, this guy, Marlon Smoke Williamson, he's going to open up Detroit for Pitt. Like, that's not a thing anymore. It's again, like, do you have the money to meet what I want to play for? Okay, I'll come play for you. Like, there's less connections, especially in basketball. Football, I still think those connections exist because you still have to bring in 20 high school recruits a year. Whereas in basketball, you don't have to do that. You do not have to be tied to any type of AAU program. You do not have to be tied to any region. It's all about, okay, can you, get 20 high school recruits a year? Like, there's no, there's less connections, especially in basketball. Football, I still think those connections exist because you still have to bring in 20 high school recruits a year. Whereas in basketball, you don't have to be tied to any type of AAU program. You do not have to be tied to any region. It's all about, okay, can you pay me, and that's it. So I don't know if like anything would really functionally change about their approach to basketball if they change one of the assistant coaches.
I agree. Mr. John says a homecoming game is supposed to be an easy game. We were talking about making the Bucknell game homecoming. Do you typically think that the homecoming game is supposed to be an easy game, Jim? Do you have that perspective?
I think like that mindset definitely comes from like high school. Like you always play like, oh, the team that always goes 0-9, like they're everyone's homecoming. So like I kind of get that. So yeah, I mean, I guess in a way you don't want to risk the lose. Homecoming's supposed to be in essence a time where more people come to the game and brings people back. So I guess you don't want to risk losing.
All right, this is a good question to end on here. Our friend Paul Sebastian says, did you do any end of season awards? If not, who is the MVP? Who didn't hit their potential? And who has the biggest chance to be a big contributor next year? Who's the MVP this season, Jim? Sorry, it's hard to think of, in terms of an MVP on a 13-20 team, but who's the MVP?
Throughout the 32 game schedule, there was different points where there was different guys handling that role. I mean, I think, at times like Roman was their best player. At times, I think Cam Corrin was their best player. At times, Barry Dudding was their best player. I don't know if anyone, I would say, like, if they weren't there, their record would have been worse because it was already so bad. I mean, I don't know what value changes if one of those guys was removed.
One guy led the team in scoring, rebounding, minutes, field goal percentage, and was second on the team in 3-point field goal percentage. I mean,
but you're still not like running to say he's the team MVP
because I can't. But if blind taste test, if I said, hey, here's this team, player A led them in scoring, rebounds, minutes, field goal percentage, and was second on the team in 3-point field goal percentage, it would be like, well, yeah, obviously that's the MVP. But are we really going to sit here and say Cam Corrin was this team's MVP?
We kind of might have to.
Because it's like, if not him, Noyes? It was like, I forget, I had a stat where like when Noyes scored 16 or more, Pitt was like 5-2 or something like that, or 4-2 or something, like where he was like one of the few players whose scoring really did correlate to like when he hit a certain benchmark, they won a lot more than they lost, as opposed to Cam Corrin, who I think in his career still has a losing record. His team's have a losing record when he scores 20 or more. So, but I'm not going to sit here and say Noyes Intersitis was the team MVP. I'm not going to sit here and say DeMarco Minor. I mean, could you make a case for DeMarco Minor? Team leader,
I don't think
two huge game-winning shots.
That's true. If he did not make those, they go from 12 wins to 10.
They won 13. You keep shorting them a game, Jim. They were 13-20 this year. You keep saying they had played 32 games. Is there a game that you are like blocking out of your memory that you refuse to
maybe like
acknowledge?
Wherever
you refuse to acknowledge the Notre Dame game? I understand. That was bad. That was a bad game.
Maybe like whenever I was doing like all of my writing, like I just stopped at a certain point and like that's the number. Like whenever you like reference stats, like you remember them. And I guess for whatever reason, I stopped at like 12-20.
No, 13-20. They beat Stanford, which had a DeMarco Minor game-winning shot. So 2 out of their 13 wins, whatever percentage that is, he scored the game-winning shot. Led the team in assists. He was their best free throw shooter, right? DeMarco Minor? Probably 88%. Yeah, nobody was better than that, but he was also 6th on the team in scoring. So you can't really go with him. Roman Cialepa, like you said, decent chunk of the season was their best player. Didn't really translate it, and he didn't finish all that strong either, but he did lead the ACC in offensive rebounding. It's just hard. I guess it's hard. It's hard when a team is 13-20 to say, oh, that's the clear MVP. I mean, it probably has to be Cam Corrin just based on the stats. But even then, like if you played 34 minutes a game like he did, you're probably going to pile up stats. So, but he was the best shooter on the team and the second best 3-point shooter on the team. Stats are funny sometimes. Numbers. Where does he rank? He only more. I was gonna say where did he like? So he's second on the team in 3-point field goal percentage, but where is he in terms of 3-point field goals made?
I mean, I guess let me take a guess on how many he made.
Okay.
14.
Okay. Did you look that up?
No, was that just
That's 14? Yeah.
Okay.
So you can't remember how many games they played, but you can off the top of your head pull Cam Corrin's made 3-pointers out of your
as you said, stats are a weird thing, man.
I think I just also remember that the regular season was 31 games, and then they played 2 in the ACC tournament.
I can't even tell you why I'm saying 32 and not 33.
I let it slide the first time and the second time. And then when you said they only won 12 games, I was like, all right, Jim, that's enough. I have to correct you here. I didn't want I didn't want to have to make a big deal out of this, but you kind of forced my hand. But all right. Dave Yark says that Corrin was the MVP easily, which ain't saying much. So we agree with you, Dave, and we will leave it at that. All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in tonight. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. We didn't even talk about the win totals, the over-under, which is set for next season, but that'll give us something good to talk about tomorrow or next week. And I talk about it on the Morning Pit tomorrow. So, you can get your fill of football conversation right there. All right. Thanks, Jim, for your time tonight. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, the comments and the questions. Like and subscribe. Have a good rest of the night, and we will catch up with you tomorrow morning for the Morning Pit right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.